chosen one. There comes a moment in every calling when kindness without boundaries stops being virtue and starts being self-betrayal. You didn't lose your heart. You didn't become cold. You simply woke up. Life has been training you quietly through disappointment, disrespect, and delays to understand a higher truth. Niceness without strength invites misuse. The world doesn't reward the endlessly agreeable. It respects the disciplined, the anchored, the self-directed. Becoming dangerous does not mean becoming cruel. It means becoming capable. Capable of saying no without guilt. Capable of walking away without explaining. Capable of protecting your energy, your time, and your destiny. A dangerous person is not violent. They are unavailable for manipulation. And when your season of being nice ends, it's because your next level requires a backbone, not just a big heart. 1. Your silence speaks louder than your explanations. You've explained yourself enough, not once or twice, but repeatedly, patiently, carefully, sometimes desperately, trying to be understood by people who were never interested in understanding you in the first place. You've clarified intentions, justified decisions, defended your character, and walked others through your inner world as if access alone would earn respect. Over time, you discovered a harsh truth. Explanation does not create understanding where respect is absent. It only drains energy. Silence, on the other hand, preserves it. Now, silence feels cleaner, stronger. It no longer feels like weakness or avoidance. It feels like command. You've realized that the need to constantly explain yourself is often rooted in seeking validation. And once validation is no longer your currency, explanations lose their urgency. You stop rushing to correct rumors. You stop reacting to misinterpretations. You stop rehearsing defenses for accusations that were never honest questions to begin with. You let people believe what they choose, because your life no longer requires their agreement. This is where inner authority is born. Authority doesn't announce itself. It doesn't argue. It doesn't persuade. It simply is. When you move from explanation to silence, you're no longer asking for permission to exist as you are. You're declaring, quietly but firmly, that your truth does not need to be negotiated. People who respect you will feel this shift immediately. They won't demand explanations because respect already fills the gaps. People who don't respect you will grow uncomfortable, even agitated, because silence denies them control. Silence also teaches you discernment. You begin to notice who listens without demanding, who observes without interrogating, who trusts without proof. These are the people aligned with your growth. Everyone else reveals themselves through their impatience, suspicion, or entitlement to your emotional labor. Silence becomes a filter. It separates those who deserve access from those who merely want information. More importantly, silence protects your future self. Every unnecessary explanation ties you emotionally to the past, old dynamics, old wounds, old versions of yourself. When you stop explaining, you stop dragging yesterday into today. You allow yourself to evolve without narrating every step. You move freely, decisively, and with dignity. This silence is not passive, it's strategic. It's the silence of someone who knows their direction and no longer needs witnesses. It's the silence of strength, measured, intentional, and deeply rooted. And once you experience this kind of silence, you never return to noisy self-justification again. 2. You're no longer afraid of being misunderstood. There was a time when being liked mattered more than being aligned, when harmony felt safer than honesty, when you adjusted your tone, softened your truth, or withheld parts of yourself just to avoid friction. You believed misunderstanding meant failure, that if someone didn't get you, you had done something wrong. So you tried harder, explained more, compromised deeper. but alignment was the price you kept paying. Now, something fundamental has shifted. Being aligned matters more than being liked. You've recognized that approval is fleeting, but self-betrayal lingers. You understand that growth will always disturb those who benefited from your compliance. When you evolve, you disrupt expectations. When you choose truth, you threaten comfort. And when you stop shrinking, some people will label your expansion as arrogance, coldness, or rebellion. You've made peace with that. You no longer dilute your truth to make others comfortable. You no longer edit your values to fit into rooms that were never meant to hold you. Misunderstanding has lost its power because it no longer defines you. You finally understand yourself, and that understanding has become your anchor. When you are rooted internally, external confusion cannot shake you. You've learned that being misunderstood is not always a problem to solve. Sometimes it's a sign you're speaking from a higher altitude. People operating from old paradigms will naturally misread someone who has outgrown them. You stop taking that personally. Instead of bending backward to be perceived correctly, you now stand upright and let perception adjust or not. This shift makes you dangerous in the best way. Dangerous not because you seek conflict, but because you no longer fear it. You don't chase consensus, you don't beg for clarity, you don't perform relatability, you allow your truth to exist without apology, even when it makes others uncomfortable. That discomfort is not your responsibility. Being misunderstood also teaches you resilience. You stop outsourcing your identity. You stop measuring yourself by reactions. You become immune to projections, assumptions, and narratives that don't belong to you. Your self-concept stabilizes. And with that stability comes freedom, the freedom to act in alignment, even when applause is absent. This is not isolation, it's sovereignty. You're no longer afraid of being misunderstood because you've realized that misunderstanding is often the cost of becoming who you truly are, and you are finally willing to pay that cost. 3. Your no is immediate and unapologetic. There was a version of you who negotiated every boundary, who explained every refusal, who softened every no with excessive politeness, guilt, or compensation. You worried about being seen as difficult, selfish, or unkind. So you delayed decisions, overextended yourself, said yes when your spirit was screaming no, and each time you did, you paid with exhaustion, resentment, and quiet self-betrayal. That version of you is gone. Now your no is immediate and unapologetic. It doesn't come wrapped in excuses. It doesn't arrive late after self-abandonment. It doesn't require justification. When something doesn't serve your peace, values, or purpose, the answer is clear and final. You don't negotiate with your boundaries anymore because you understand that boundaries are not requests, they are standards. This isn't arrogance, it's self-respect catching up with wisdom. You've learned that every yes is a commitment of energy, time, and attention, and those resources are finite. You no longer give them away casually. You choose deliberately. You decide consciously. You protect your inner world with the seriousness it deserves. You've also noticed how your unapologetic no reveals people's intentions. Those who respect you accept it without pressure. Those who benefited from your lack of boundaries push back, guilt trip, or attempt manipulation. And instead of explaining yourself further, you observe. You take notes. You let their reactions inform your future access decisions. This clarity has made your life quieter and stronger, less chaos, fewer obligations, more alignment. You're no longer available for everything, and paradoxically that makes you more valuable. You are no longer driven by the need to be liked. You are driven by the need to be whole. Nice people ask for permission. Dangerous people decide. Not dangerous in harm, but in certainty, in self-trust, in grounded resolve. Your no is no longer defensive, it's declarative, and because of that it commands respect, even when it disappoints. 4. You've stopped rescuing people who won't change. You used to believe love meant sacrifice without limits, that compassion required self-erasure, that if you cared enough, explained enough, or tried hard enough, people would eventually change. You carried others emotionally, mentally, sometimes financially, confusing loyalty with responsibility. And while your intentions were pure, the cost was heavy. You've learned the hard way that saving people who refuse responsibility only delays your destiny. You saw patterns repeat, promises break, apologies replace action, and each time you gave another chance, hoping effort would eventually inspire transformation. Instead, it taught them dependency and taught you exhaustion. You no longer confuse compassion with self-sacrifice. You understand that real change requires willingness, not rescue. You can support growth, but you cannot substitute for it. You can offer guidance, but you cannot walk someone else's path. And you can love people deeply without carrying their burdens as your own. This realization didn't come easily. It came through disappointment, burnout, and painful clarity. But it came. And with it, your energy stopped leaking. You stopped pouring into bottomless wells. You stopped mistaking potential for progress. You stopped tying your worth to other people's healing journeys. You can now wish people well without walking with them. You can step back without hatred. You can detach without cruelty. This is maturity. This is power. This is discernment sharpened by experience. You've chosen to invest your energy where it multiplies, not where it disappears. And in doing so, you've reclaimed your future. 5. You're comfortable walking alone. Loneliness no longer threatens you the way it once did. There was a time when being alone felt like failure, like something was missing, like you were falling behind, like isolation meant rejection. You equated company with validation and presence with worth. But experience rewired that belief. You discovered that being surrounded by the wrong people is far more damaging than walking alone. Now, solitude has become sacred. Not empty, not cold, sacred. It's where your clarity sharpens, your intuition speaks louder, and your standards reset. You've realized that walking alone is better than walking with people who drain your energy, dilute your focus, or quietly resent your growth. You're no longer afraid of the quiet because the quiet is where you hear yourself most clearly. Your standards rose, and many couldn't come with you. Some tried to follow but refused to evolve. Some demanded access without alignment. Some wanted proximity to your light without doing the inner work required to walk beside it. You didn't exile them. You simply kept walking. And eventually the distance formed naturally. This isn't loss, it's alignment. You've learned that solitude is not punishment, it's refinement. Alone time has taught you discipline, patience, and self-trust. You've become comfortable making decisions without a committee. You no longer need constant affirmation to move forward. You consult your values instead of opinions. That independence changes how you move through the world. Dangerous people don't fear isolation, they use it to sharpen themselves. They train in silence. They rebuild in private. They let solitude strip away weakness and reveal truth. And that's exactly what you've done. You've stopped filling space just to avoid being alone. You've stopped lowering standards just to keep company. Now, when people enter your life, it's by alignment, not need. They complement your path instead of distracting from it. They walk with you, not on you. And if no one fits that standard, you're still at peace. That comfort is power. Because someone who is comfortable walking alone cannot be controlled by fear of abandonment. They cannot be manipulated by threats of withdrawal. They cannot be rushed into bad decisions just to avoid loneliness. You walk alone, not because you must, but because you can. And that choice has made you unshakable. 6. Your kindness now has conditions. You are still kind, but not to everyone. This wasn't a loss of empathy, it was an upgrade in wisdom. You learned that kindness without discernment becomes self-destruction, that unlimited access given to unaccountable people is not generosity, it's self-harm. And once you saw that clearly, you changed how you give. Access is earned now, not rushed, not assumed. Trust is built through consistency, integrity, and respect, not granted through words or emotional displays. You no longer confuse familiarity with loyalty or history with safety. You watch patterns, you measure behavior, and you respond accordingly. Your heart is still open, but your gate is guarded. This balance took time to learn. You had to unlearn guilt, unlearn people-pleasing, unlearn the belief that being firm meant being cruel. You realized that true kindness includes boundaries, that protecting your energy allows you to show up fully where it actually matters. You no longer give endlessly to people who take without responsibility. You no longer pour into relationships that only flow one way. And when you withdraw kindness, it's not out of spite, it's out of self-respect. You've stopped rewarding disrespect with access. This shift confuses people who benefited from your previous openness. They call you changed, cold, different. But what really changed is your self-worth. You stopped offering gold to those who treated it like sand. Kindness with conditions is not conditional love. It's conscious love. It's love that values sustainability. Love that recognizes limits. Love that understands that generosity must be protected or it becomes exploitation. Now, when you are kind, it carries weight. When you give, it is intentional. When you show compassion, it is rooted, not draining. You are no longer available to everyone, and because of that, your presence is more meaningful. This is wisdom. This is strength. This is kindness that does not betray the self. 7. You no longer chase closure. There was a time when you believed every ending needed an explanation, a final conversation, a last message, a moment where everything made sense and wounds were neatly tied off. You chased closure as if it were something another person could give you, something you needed their participation to receive. Now, you know better. You stop needing last conversations, final texts, or emotional explanations. You realize that closure delayed by others is still captivity, that waiting for someone to understand, apologize, or explain themselves keeps you emotionally tethered to a chapter that has already ended. Some endings don't come with clarity. Some people leave without accountability. Some relationships end mid-sentence. And instead of fighting that reality, you accepted it. You chose peace over proving a point. You chose forward motion over emotional loops. Closure came from within. You reclaimed your power the moment you stopped asking people to validate your experience. You no longer need acknowledgement to heal. You no longer need answers to move on. You've learned that silence can be an answer, and distance can be resolution. This doesn't mean you suppress emotion. It means you process it privately, honestly, and fully. You grieve without bargaining. You reflect without fixation. You let lessons land without reopening wounds. When you stop chasing closure, you stop reopening doors that were meant to stay closed. You stop rehearsing pain. You stop hoping for different endings from the same characters. And in that acceptance, something powerful happens. Your energy returns. Your focus sharpens. Your peace stabilizes. You are no longer emotionally accessible to unfinished business. That is freedom. 8. Your energy feels heavier, but more grounded. Not heavier with stress, heavier with presence. There's a weight to you now that wasn't there before. Not the weight of burden, but the weight of substance. People feel you before you speak. They sense depth, restraint, and intention in how you move. You are calm, observant, and deliberate. You don't react, you respond. You don't rush, you choose timing. You don't explain, you demonstrate. Your energy no longer scatters because your attention is anchored. This grounded presence unsettles manipulators. They can't read you easily. They can't provoke quick reactions. They can't pull you into chaos. And because of that, they lose leverage. Meanwhile, people with integrity feel safe around you. They recognize the steadiness, the consistency, the self-control. You've learned that power doesn't need volume. It needs regulation. You speak less, but with precision. You act less, but with impact. You no longer waste emotional energy on things that don't matter. This is what happens when you stop being nice and start being formidable. Formidable doesn't mean aggressive. It means anchored. It means unmovable in values. It means calm under pressure. It means presence without performance. Your energy is grounded because you've integrated your experiences instead of reacting to them. You've learned from pain instead of broadcasting it. You've turned chaos into clarity. And that weight people feel, that's earned. 9. You're willing to lose people to protect your calling. This is the final sign, the clearest one, the most painful and the most powerful. You've accepted that not everyone can go where you're going, and you're finally okay with that. You've stopped dragging people forward who resist growth. You've stopped shrinking visions to accommodate comfort. You've stopped negotiating purpose for popularity. You choose purpose over approval, growth over attachment, destiny over comfort. This decision cost you relationships, familiarity, history, but it gave you alignment, peace, forward momentum. You understand now that some people are meant to be part of your journey, not your destination. Heaven trusts you with more because you've proven you can protect what matters. You guard your calling fiercely. You don't expose it to doubt. You don't share it with those who mock, minimize, or misunderstand it. You are willing to walk away from anything that threatens your path, even if it once meant everything to you. That willingness is maturity. That willingness is obedience to your higher self. That willingness is why your next season will demand more of you and reward you more deeply. You didn't become cold, you became clear. And clarity always costs, but it always pays. Chosen one, this message found you because your season of being nice has fulfilled its purpose. Now it's time to be disciplined, discerning, and dangerous, in the sense that nothing and no one can derail your assignment again. This is the Alchemy of Awareness channel. If this message spoke to you, subscribe to this channel for more truth that sharpens the spirit and strengthens the mind. And if you received this message at the exact moment you needed it, type 11 in the comments as a sign of alignment and divine blessing. Your next chapter has already begun. Thank you for watching.